There was once a poor woman living in a small forgotten town, the kind of place where hardship was so common that nobody was surprised by another family's suffering. She had a few children, a tiny home, and almost nothing left to hold her life together. Her husband had died in a car accident some years before, and with him went the little security they had. Since then, every day had become a fight against hunger, fear, and uncertainty. There was no savings, no steady income, no family support waiting to rescue her. There was only a mother, a house growing emptier by the day, and children whose eyes asked questions she no longer knew how to answer. She tried everything she could. She went from home to home searching for work, asking if anyone needed help cleaning, washing, or cooking. She was willing to do anything honest for a little money. But the town itself was poor. The people who lived there were struggling too. They could barely feed their own children. Who could afford to hire a maid? Every time she was turned away, it felt as though another piece of hope fell from her hands. She would return home with nothing, trying to force strength into her voice while her children waited for food. She did not have. There is a kind of pain that only a parent understands. It is one thing to endure hunger yourself. It is another thing entirely to watch your children suffer while you stand helpless in front of them. The woman cried for hours, not because she was weak, but because she had reached the end of what human effort alone could do. She had searched, begged, tried, endured, and still the cabinets were empty. Her hands had done all they could, but the result remained the same. Need stood in the room like a shadow that would not leave. Then one day she remembered hearing about a radio show where people called in and asked God for help. To some, that may have sounded foolish. To others, desperate. And perhaps to the proud, even embarrassing. But there are moments in life when pride becomes meaningless. When your heart is breaking and your children are hungry, you stop caring how you look. You only care whether mercy still exists. So, with a trembling voice and a weary soul, the woman called the radio station and asked for help from God. Among the many listeners, that day was a wealthy man who did not believe in God. He heard the woman's plea and became irritated. In his eyes, what she was doing was foolish. He could not stand the idea that someone in such need would turn to God with such confidence. Instead of compassion, he felt contempt. Instead of humility, he felt the need to prove her wrong. So he came up with a plan, not to help her in kindness, but to mock her faith. He contacted the radio station, got the woman's address, and called his secretary. He told her to buy a large amount of food, groceries, and household supplies and deliver them to the woman's house immediately. But he added one instruction. He said, when she asks who sent it, tell her it came from the devil. He laughed at the thought. To him, this was a joke, a chance to humiliate belief and prove that prayer was useless. But what he did not understand was that when a person truly trusts God, they stop being impressed by appearances. They begin to see beyond people and circumstances. They begin to understand that the hand delivering the answer is not always the hand that authored it. When the secretary arrived at the woman's small home with the food, the woman was overwhelmed. Relief washed over her like rain after a long drought. Her children would eat. The house that had held only emptiness would now hold provision. She began gathering the food, carrying it inside, filling shelves that had known nothing but lack. Every bag, every item, every small necessity felt like proof that heaven had not forgotten her. The secretary watched in surprise. She expected questions. She expected curiosity. She expected the woman to stop and ask who had sent all these things. But the woman kept moving, grateful and calm, as though the answer was already known. Finally, the secretary asked, "Do you not want to know who sent you all of this?" The woman paused and looked at her with the kind of certainty that does not come from comfort, but from faith tested by pain. Then she said something so simple and so powerful that it turned the entire moment upside down. She said, "No, I do not need to know, because when God gives the order, even the devil obeys." That is the kind of faith the world does not understand. The world thinks faith is only for when life is going well. It thinks belief is easy talk for comfortable people. But real faith is born in the dark. It is formed in empty rooms, in unanswered nights, in seasons when everything visible says there is no hope. Real faith is what remains when logic runs out and the heart still chooses to trust. This woman had every reason to despair. She had every reason to become bitter. She had every reason to say, "Where is God now?" And yet she did not surrender her trust. That is what made her strong. She understood something that many people never truly learn. God does not always answer in ways we expect, but He answers. He does not always send help through obvious channels, but He sends it. Sometimes the answer comes through people who do not believe they are part of anything divine. Sometimes the very person trying to mock faith ends up becoming the instrument through which that faith is rewarded. What was intended as ridicule became confirmation. What was meant to humiliate her belief only revealed how powerless unbelief really is in the presence of God's will.